Hello and welcome back to A Table for Four. Today our programme is called Strictly Come Darning. It's a modern take on what used to be a really utilitarian repair stitch, but now people are using it decoratively to show off their skills and use it on all sorts of things. I'm joined in the studio today by Gronya, by Christine and BJ, and between us we're going to take a modern look at darning. We've got a selection of items to work with, from socks to gloves to hats, and we're going to try 3 different ways of working. There's freestyle darning, which is where we literally just create a shape and repair it. You're working almost like a little loom. You have a warp and you have a weft, so you make a grid and you stitch. I'll show you how to get started. We've also got my favourite, which is the darning mushroom, and another little item I've just discovered, which is a darning loom. So before we get started, I'd just like to hear a little bit maybe about your creative journey. What brought you here today, Gronya?
I have a great love of craft. I began crafting in during lockdown, where I work is a charity called Here and the women were very isolated, as were a lot of people during lockdown. So I started a crafting group and we met every 2 weeks on Zoom, and I had sent them out a pack. So it just really made me really love taking part in crafts.
I think lockdown was so hard for everybody, but I think it did. People just developed their creativity in really ingenious ways, and I'm still referring back to YouTube videos that I made a couple of years ago, and my delivery was really eager, it was really fun, it was really engaging, and I think it was like being on the crest of a wave. Now what's happened is the interest in arts and crafts is phenomenal. I mean, you cannot go anywhere without seeing something that somebody's made. I absolutely love that. So Christine, or CC Crafts as you're also known as, it's lovely to have you here today, and you've brought with you something beautiful. I believe you are the knitwear queen, aren't you?
Yes. That's why I sort of call myself a yarn artist, because I think I'm just slightly different from a knitter. I brought this Curator inspired jumper with me, cardigan with me. Now, in the 1950s, my husband and family went to Canada, and my father-in-law bought a jumper like this from the First Nation Cowichan tribe. And he wore it for years and years and years, and it got lost somehow. And my husband handed me this little tiny grainy photograph, and he asked me, "Can you make me a jumper like Dad's?" Because his father had not long passed away. And so I tell you, it took a lot of research to actually find the patterns, because each pattern is, one woman has her own patterns.
That's absolutely beautiful. Look, thank you so much for bringing that into the studio. We'll probably put that away because we're going to have you darning quite soon. But what I love is the actual, if you want to learn to knit, you're a great person to ask, because some of these stitches look identifiable, like, oh, I know how to do that, but then you start to get more complex. And now over to BJ. Let us know where you're from and what is your area of speciality.
Right, sure. So my name is BJ Olson, and I moved here in 2016. I have a very long story, but I'll start with lockdown because that's when I started embroidering. I am a nurse. I was an A&E nurse in Baltimore and Washington, D.C. I started embroidering pictures that were going viral on the internet of people wearing silly masks, like an orange, or one guy had some pool noodles sticking out from his head and then had a big hat of pool noodles. And it was just kind of a way to talk about society and how they're dealing or not so well dealing with the pandemic.
It's really lovely to have you here today. So I think we've all had a little chance to be introduced to each other. I'm just going to get you to roll up this absolutely beautiful, I think, as a museum curator, just a tip, I always roll any knitwear and textiles just so you don't get lots of storage creases in it. That's lovely. Thank you very much, Christine. So we're going to make a start, and I've got these most amazing socks here. Some of you may have heard in previous shows about Pippa the Knitter, my sister-in-law, who over the past 25 years, twice a year I get a pair of socks. So I have 50 pairs of Pippa socks, but I needed a pair that needed darning, so she created a pair that needed darning. So I'm going to ask you, to work with a darning mushroom. So a darning mushroom, what I love about them really hasn't changed very much. You can buy them in all shapes and sizes. Don't spend a lot of money on them. They're slightly shiny. They're quite nice to touch. They're a bit like a door handle. We've got some nice darning thread. We've got reds, we've got yellows, we've got grey. A darning needle is fantastic because it means you can do a long run, but a chenille needle, if you can't have access to a darning needle, is great. Feel free to experiment. You are an embroiderer, you've done some beautiful, beautiful work. I'll give you that, and then what we'll do is we'll pass all the bits and pieces along to you.
Okay.
So, Christine, I've got something really special for you. Once you've started to use this, it's a game changer for darning. I've got a beautiful sock here, the hole in it, thanks to the dog, but I'm going to show you how to add the loom. So the little darning loom is basically looks like a kind of like a biscuit or a cookie, as you would call it. You place the cookie into the sock underneath the area that needs repairing. Okay. This is so basic, you're not going to believe it. And just for ease, I'm kind of holding it like this. In here, a selection of elastic bands. And there's a ridge in the little disc, and you place that, and that holds it in, okay?
Yeah.
The next bit, you hook this on, there you go. So now you've got your hooks here, and you will take your needle with your long thread on, and you you hook around there. You can move that around, and you take your stitch down, and you take a stitch and then go back up, okay? And you keep doing that, but every time you stop, you actually tie a stitch. Then when you want to change direction, you push them that way.
Right.
So we'll get you started. What I think I might do is I'll do one at the same time to show you.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you end up doing is creating a little patch like that. Once you've done the weaving and you take the loom off, you do have to finish.
That's what I was just wondering,
Yeah.
what you did with it once you'd finished it.
Okay. So what we will then let you do is choose whichever yarn you want. And I'm going to move on to Gronya, our lovely Gronya. Okay. But I've got a strip of denim for you that you can work on. And when you're working on denim, don't use a mushroom, don't use the loom. We'll come back to the loom, don't worry. There just happens to be a hole there. And who doesn't love a hoop? These are leftovers from projects I do. So it's a question of finding the hoop that suits you. When you're using a hoop, you probably all know this. You definitely know this. And for those of you who might be watching, you want to put your smaller piece underneath and then take your... There's something really lovely about hooping up. It's like preparing your canvas for painting. So there you have, and you know you've got a really good hoop when you get a bit of a nice drum. So again, you can use the darning technique. So darning is basically you're making a grid. You go down and you go across. But if you want to start adding bits, if you wanted to turn that almost like into a massive buttonhole, you could do that, and you could stick a piece of felt underneath it, which is also quite a nice way. So I'm going to let you get started. You get started, and I'm going to work on doing a little loom with you.
Yeah.
So just any thread you want, just you choose. You can work with a variety, and if you want anything special that I haven't got, tough. There is a needle threader there as well.
Okay.
So perhaps I'll give you your own little scissors as well.
Thank you.
So just take your time, and the idea of today is to experiment, but it would be really lovely to see some finished pieces. I'm going to work on the loom again, So I'm going to keep coming back to you and checking in, and do ask me any questions you want. I'm going to go for pink. I like a bit of a clash of, I'm a great Vivienne Westwood fan. So what I'm doing is, when you come to the bottom, you actually do a stitch, okay?
Oh, right, to hold it down.
To hold it down. I've got a little tail here, but I don't mind. I quite like the tails. Oh, yours is beautiful. Oh my goodness, that's a lot neater than mine. So when you are,
You didn't do your brownie housekeeping badge.
when we go across this way, if you actually do an actual stitch there and then go in and out and a stitch there, that holds it all together.
Right.
If you see what I mean.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
All right.
I'm good
So
at
mine,
run out of
I
yarn.
would say mine is slightly more freestyle than I'd anticipated. Christine, you're making great progress there. I'm doing a slightly different shape to yours. The key thing is, when you start to work left to right to do your weft, when you start, you anchor with a stitch.
Okay.
Okay, and anchor with a stitch at the end. Right. So when you come to take this off the loom, those will be loose,
Yeah.
but you can sew them down.
Okay.
Okay. So BJ, what's your favourite stitch when you are embroidering?
Probably the satin stitch.
Okay.
And I usually use 2 threads or 1, because everything I make is usually really detailed. So as much fun as it is to do it like we're doing here, where I'm just using all 6 threads,
Yeah.
a lot of times, because of the finished, what I want the finished product to look like, it'll be 2 threads that I'll be doing a satin stitch with, and that can be very thread consuming. So you have to make sure you have the right color and enough of it, in case, especially if you make a mistake, you have to pull some out.
Do you have any tricks for, I might get you to show me actually, for how to, for those of you who don't know, your skein of threads or floss, is it 6 or 8 threads?
6.
6. So if you only want 1 thread, you've got to extract that from the 6.
Yeah.
And people have taught me all different ways where you let gravity do it, but I usually end up with little, what I call bird's nests, of leftover bits, and you end up thinking, I'm not really going to have time to unravel that, so I don't reuse them.
There's 2 ways to do it that I know of. Yeah.
Would you be able to show me?
Sure, sure. So the longer,
might be worth a look.
the longer it is, the more it'll knot up. So you have to be careful.
Okay.
Usually, if you let gravity do it, you just take your 2. Like I would usually take 2.
Okay.
And then just pull them apart.
Oh, so you have to be quite patient.
Yeah.
You see.
Not quickly.
Okay. All right.
But the longer it is, the more it'll knot. So you have to be very careful.
Okay.
And the other way is like the same. But if it's quite long, you could actually put it between your lips.
Okay. Oh,
and then that'll come right off.
Oh, that is brilliant. You should make a YouTube video of that. That is brilliant. And let me just have a little look at that. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. So you've done the kind of Frankenstein repair stitch.
Yes, this looks like a scar. Yeah, it looks like I've mended the wound. And then I'm going to do a couple of bright colours just to pick
going through. Yeah. So what you might want to do for your long stitching is use the bigger needle.
Right, okay.
Because that is a game changer. So it means you don't have to do 6 or 7 different little bits. You can just use the long needle.
Use that. Thank
but
you.
Really enjoy the process. For me, using a hoop, the sound of the needle going into the fabric, the whoosh of the thread, the floss, it kind of makes a popping noise, and you kind of know you're doing the right thing.
Yes.
So have you ever done any darning before?
I haven't done any darning, no. But actually I was at a craft show yesterday, and my mum picked up the darning mushroom, and she said, nobody ever uses these anymore. And then here we are today using it. I think it's absolutely amazing.
And you didn't know that you were going to be doing that today.
No,
so
didn't know
that's
that
wonderful. And I was just hearing you chat earlier, your blouse, you made that, did you?
Yes,
that's incredible.
I also learned to sew on a sewing machine during lockdown, so I do try to make a lot of my own clothes. Yeah. So I prefer to make tops, but I don't mind sewing jersey. Some people don't like stretch materials. But I don't mind. That's really what I learned to sew on.
So
was
that's
stretch
quite interesting. So
fabrics.
you started from scratch.
My mum had shown me before. My mum was a home economics teacher.
Uh-huh.
And she had shown me how to sew and how to knit. She had a knit machine and a sewing machine. So, but I really got into it during lockdown and started making clothes.
Wow. Do you find you buy just loads and loads of fabric?
I always say there's two different hobbies. Buying fabric and using fabric are two completely different hobbies.
I totally agree. My husband reckons I have more wool than I'll ever use in a lifetime.
But I think wool is it's a kind of legacy. I mean, I just think the cardigan that you made, that you showed us, is a replica of something that's already been. And I just think, to me, that is the epitome of being creative. It's reworking something, reusing something. I do think designs go full circle, you know, and there's a real, I never thought a year ago I would be wearing flared jeans and I was worried that they're not flared enough. You know, if I go back to the 1970s, you would be adding extension pieces. Did you ever do that to your jeans, like a V in the side to make them kick out? I bet you did.
Do you know what happened
probably.
to my jeans? I had to chop them off because I've got such short legs. So I lost
Oh, I see.
the bottom bits.
Yeah.
So I just ended up with two bits pointing like that. Yeah.
But
But a bit of embroidery on the bottom of them, and things like that.
Oh, I used to put
But,
extensions on mine because
I'm the opposite. You see, I put
our
mini
era,
legs.
Christine, we would wear platforms.
Oh,
and
loved my platforms.
I was tall anyway, but when you're tall and you're young, wearing platforms it kind of goes with the territory. So I used to love my long flared trousers. When I was an art student, in the era of homage to, you know, Kate Bush and Boy George, there was a shop in London called Flip, and it was, bear in mind, this is a very early 80s, and Covent Garden, the shop called Flip, everything was American Army surplus clothes, but in with that would be ball gowns and beaded cardigans, you know, that they would have worn for kind of just at school, I think, decorative cardigans, where school uniform perhaps was slightly different to the ones that we would have had. So I used to wear a ball gown, a beaded cardigan, a pair of moccasins one day, the next day army camouflage trousers and a pair of army boots. I think you didn't really stick to any one look, you just worked with what you could.
We had a fantastic shop here called Alcatraz. It was in Cornmarket, and they did all the army surplus stuff. And I remember going in and buying a school bag, and everybody bought their school bag, and then they were all military style bags, and then we all decorated them. Some people decorated them with Tipp-Ex, and some people decorated them with marker, and we all decorated them in our own unique style, even though we all had the same bag.
But I think that's
Great.
That's quite nice. You never forget that. You personalise. So, BJ, what brought you to live in Northern Ireland? What's your story? How did you get here?
The original plan was that my husband got a Fulbright scholarship, which is when universities from the UK and the US switch students, basically. And so he came over here to do research in disability policy, and they really liked his work at Ulster University, and so they offered him, after he was done with his year, a paid PhD. You're getting a PhD? Yeah, we'll stay. So we went ahead and stayed. So 3 more years while I got the PhD, I went ahead and got my master's from Ulster University in nursing, just to make it easier for me to work here, because they like to see a UK school on your CV. And after his time, then we switched from an education visa to a work visa. So now we're here on my skilled worker visa, and I have 2 more years left, and then we can be indefinite leave to remain, which means I don't have to work full-time as a nurse. Like I would really love to be a full-time artist, but because of my visa, I can't. So I'm hoping to maybe do a half and half kind of thing after the visa part's over. But we're so happy living here, and honestly, like, people are always asking me, why did you move here? And you know, and The weather is not that bad here. Everybody says the weather is terrible, and I'm like, no, the weather's not terrible, because I lived in DC, Maryland, Baltimore. The summers were wretched, hot, terrible. The winters were cold and full of snow. I had to shovel out my car all the time. That's not happening here, and I love it. I get to wear a cardigan every day. It's fine.
Oh,
So I love the weather here.
I love it here. But there is something lovely. You probably find it with your groups. You work as an advocate, do you, for children and adults with your group?
Yes, so I work with women, lesbian and bisexual women and their families. So we have a special project called the Here Together project, which works with children and young people aged 7 to 25 and their LGBT parent or carer. So we definitely try to increase the confidence of the young people and of the families as a whole, just to get them confident in their family type, and to raise visibility of different families for other people as well.
That's wonderful.
There's something very nurturing about finding a craft that somebody can do. And you probably, the more people you meet, the more you developed an instinct for knowing what people might be. They might come in being, oh, I love watercolouring, but then end up perhaps doing something like this. That's what I really love about what I do. And you probably, in a similar role, I would say, you are using craft as not just to learn a technique, but for that sense of well-being and confidence.
Yes, it can. We touched on it earlier about craft being therapeutic. I firmly believe that. I think that people chat more, like we're chatting today. People chat more when they're crafting. It takes them away from any problems that they might have outside of this space. It just makes them focus on the moment, and that can really, really help people.
It's extremely good for
Yeah, it clears your mind, doesn't it?
And I think that working together as a group, which we would sometimes do group projects, working together as a group builds a real sense of community for the families and just makes them see that they're just as valued as every other family.
So Grania, that is looking absolutely beautiful. What are you going to do next, just to finish off?
So I'm going to cut into a circle just with a border around my hoop, and then I'm going to stitch it and draw it in like a drawstring bag so that it all disappears around the back.
So you'll then have a ready-made frame, your piece of darning.
Yep.
That's great. Thank you. I'll come back to you.
Sure.
So Christine, here we are at the end. So I'm going to show you. This is this is when the whole thing pings away, and you remove your elastic, as we call it, and then you can you see what I've done?
Yeah.
So now, keeping your base, just pick up those stitches and stitch them on.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So BJ,
Yes.
how are you getting on with your final bit? You're on the last bit.
I did all right with the petals, and I'm putting wee flowers on top of the...
Beautiful. Oh, I like the fact that you've left a stamen through the top. That is quite lovely. Now, I just wanted to give everybody a couple of moments to finish off. But before we do that, I believe you brought some more of your work in.
I did.
To show us. Would you have could I take you off your American knot just to show us? So just carry on finishing off while we have a look.
So this is a man in China, and he was just out and about with his orange mask.
Made from an orange.
Yes, it was a real orange, so it's just like the picture. It was a very viral photo. It was really cool because as I started, this is the second one I made. The first one I made was an astronaut shopper.
That is beautiful. So if you half close your eyes, you would be hard to know that that was embroidery. It's so smooth. It's so beautiful. In fact, I want to touch it. It's absolutely gorgeous.
This is what I was talking about, that sometimes it takes a long time, because this was all 2 threads. This background is all 1 thread. I did some weaving as well. And some of these pieces have some hidden messages in them as well, which was fun for me to do. So,
well, I think that is hidden messages and things are beautiful. I think that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, with your embroidery and with your cardigan, and with your blouse, I think we've captured everything. I can't tell you what I'm wearing today. I didn't make anything myself. I tend to adapt things rather than make them. But what I have done is I've had a wonderful morning, Strictly Come Darning. I hope I've inspired you to take up the darning needle, dig out the socks. It's not just elbows and armpits of jumpers that need repairing. You can use it decoratively. And I think what would be really lovely, I'm just going to finish up now. I'm going to do, you know when you say just one more stitch, I think that's going to be written on my grave.
Yes, me
just
too.
Just one more stitch, one more stitch.
Or one more row when you're
One
knitting.
more row. There is something beautiful about darning, but it's been an absolute pleasure to darn with you all today. So I'm going to snip my threads. I'm going to remove, take the biscuit out of the sock. My dog would go crazy for this. He'd think it would be a real biscuit. And I'm actually really pleased with what I've done. I need to defuzz the socks slightly. Now, if the dog gets these, I'll go crazy. I might frame them up like yours. So there's mine. Are you ready to present yours?
That's mine.
I'll let you take your needle off.
I did your trick and I went round right the way around the edge.
I just think it gives it punctuates
it tidies
beautifully.
it up.
But also the true professional Christine's work looks as good on the back as it does on the front. And look at that beautiful piece there. Isn't that
wow, that's
well
fabulous.
done? That is good.
Yeah.
But again, equally on the back.
Yeah.
So that is a great trick to know, and you can just put your wadding in there. Do you sometimes cover the back as well?
Yes, sometimes I would take a circle of felt and blanket stitch
Yeah.
it around the back.
Well, you're going
or-
to take some home with you.
Excellent.
And you could just choose a lovely bit of embroidery thread to hang that from.
Yeah.
And let's
Thank
have
you.
a look at yours.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Oh, I need to have a close look at that. Those are phenomenal. You have actually reinvented darning for me. I think that is beautiful. You could actually carry on up the whole sock.
You could.
Who needs darning?
You could do
can
like
just
ivy and all sorts of fun things.
bespoke socks.
Butterflies.
But I definitely need to get the defuzzer out on this
Yeah.
sock. So what we'll do is perhaps put all our pieces next to each other. And mine looks a little bit like a poor relation here. I'm just hiding mine
It
there.
looks like a
So there
Valentine's
we
Day
have
card.
our different types using the embroidery hoop, working with denim, using the weaving loom. And here we have the novice, and here we have the expert, okay? And do you know what? That to me is, it looks like it's a little bit of carpet. It's got texture, it's really beautiful. And I think that, for me, has stolen the show. Well done.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all so much for coming. This has been, in fact, I forgot that I'm working. I just have really, I just love the way you've embraced the subject and just gone for it. BJ, wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for coming in. Christine, thank you again for coming back with your beautiful knitwear. And Gronya, I can't thank you enough for coming in. I look forward to seeing you again in our favourite shop. Thank you for joining us at A Table for Four. We'll be back again soon with lots more tricks and tips and hacks. Thank you.